guys, I brought in a special guest today, Pika, you know her if you watch my channel,
Hey.
to talk about the things that I wish I knew before my Appalachian Trail thru hike. Pika, you also hiked the AT. Why don't you start? What do you wish you knew?
Well, first off, I wish that I hadn't bought into the trend of trail runners. I never really thought about quitting the trail, but the first 500 miles, I was definitely in pain. My feet were swollen, and I wasn't happy with the miles that I was doing. And during that time, I tried 2 different trail runners, and neither of them worked for me. When I switched to boots in Damascus, my feet were so happy, and it was like I was a brand new person out there. So that was probably the biggest thing that I wish I had known.
I saw so many people out there in trail runners with so many foot problems, and they all insisted their problems had nothing to do with trail runners.
Another thing I wish I had known, I mean, this is, you're kind of going to think, duh, but you don't have to by any means. I was in the worst shape of my life when I started the AT. One reason that I wish I was in better shape was just so I could keep up with the people that I was hiking with a little bit more. That kind of limited me from pursuing bigger miles and staying with certain people that I would have liked to continue hiking with. So I wish just going into it a little bit more in shape would have gone a long way.
Yeah, I agree. Me too. I had this really weird sickness the winter before I did the AT. It was a mystery, never figured out what it was, but it took me out for weeks. And so I wish I would have had more time and energy to get in physical shape beforehand, for sure. By the way, guys, we're on Rocky Mountain National Park right now for the weekend. It's a little windy, so sorry if the camera's moving around a little bit, but we thought, hey, this background's incredible. We should do the video here. So I also wish I was so anxious before I started the AT, like so anxious for weeks before. I was waking up with like night terrors. I was so afraid that I was throwing away my life in DC, even though I was really over being there and wanted to move on. I was so afraid I was giving up my career, or at least like making a stupid move in my career in order to do this journey that I didn't even know if I was gonna like. I thought I quit my job. I thought, what if I get out there and I hate it? And I was just worrying about it so much ahead of time. And then as soon as I stepped on the trail, it was like peace washed over me. And I was just from that point on so in the moment that none of those fears ended up, becoming true. I absolutely loved my experience out there. I like my job that I have now, that I've had since right after the AT. Like, I just wish I had spent less time in those weeks before I started being so anxious. Like, I wish I would have just enjoyed that time more as like my goodbye to DC instead of wasting it being so anxious. I also, Pika will laugh at me about this one, but I wish that I had spent a lot more time researching gear ahead of time. Like, my gear was just ridiculously heavy. My pack was so big, and it was so hard. Like, Georgia's really tough. It's a lot of up and downs. Like, the whole, bottom southern section of the trail is pretty mountainous, and it was a real struggle. Like, I was so tired and so sore every day. And I would have had such an easier time if I had just done way more and better gear research and gotten way lighter gear to begin with. Because now at this point, I have switched out like literally all of my backpacking gear for lighter stuff. And I wish I would have done that ahead of the AT and made it easier on myself. She's like the queen of cutting weight, so that's why I say she's gonna laugh at me, because every backpacking trip we go on, she's like, why are you carrying this? Why do you have this? Why is your back so heavy?
Sorry, I know it's a little obnoxious. I just want everyone to be happy out there. And I think you get to be more happy when you're carrying less weight.
It's true though, it's really true, to an extent. I also run really cold though, so I'm never going to be able to be an ultralighter because my body, it wouldn't abide. It needs things to keep it warm. Okay, anything else you can think of, Pika?
Yes. I wish I had known how tough Katahdin was going to be.
It was so hard and no one talks about it. Like, I think that was the hardest climb on the whole trail. I don't know, the Kinsmans and the Whites were also really difficult. Which one was harder? I don't know, but I think probably Katahdin. I think that was the hardest climb of the entire AT.
But people, they talked about, oh, the Whites are so tough, so you go into it having an expectation that this is going to be really tough, and I never heard anyone say how bad Katahdin
No, me neither. No one talks about it.
And for your last day of going Novo on trail, thankfully you have that adrenaline, you're pumped to finish. But a couple of things, like as a shorty, I definitely needed somebody to boost me up on a few sections. There are some ladder rungs that I just couldn't quite reach, so I got a boost from a friend. My parents are probably watching this, but they know I wish I hadn't invited them to finish with me.
Hi, Pika's parents.
Because, and I had some other friends that had some folks come out and hike the inn with them, and they kind of said the same thing. Not just because you want that moment with your trail family and friends, but because it is extremely tough. There's like a crevasse that you kind of have to sling yourself across, and you look down and it drops really far, and it was terrifying for me as someone that's afraid of heights. And then there's some false summits that you're like, oh, I'm almost there, and you're not quite there.
So many false summits.
I think for a 10-mile hike for my last day, it took all day long, which, you know, you're in the best shape, you're a little exhausted, but your adrenaline's pumping and you're excited to finish, and it just was really tough.
And most people slack pack it, so you're not even bringing up all of your gear up there because you're allowed to leave it in a ranger station, or if you have people coming to meet you, you can put it in their car. So Ibex's boy band, you guys know Ibex if you watch my channel, he put our stuff in his car because he came to finish the trail with her. And so we weren't even carrying like most of our stuff at all, and it was still that difficult. Did you carry all your stuff up there?
Heck no.
Yeah, I slack packed every chance I got. No shame about that. But anyway, guys, I also asked some other trail friends if they would weigh in and give some advice on this same topic. So I'm going to switch into their videos right now.
Hi guys, my name is Ibex. Today I'm in the beautiful Catskills in New York, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2018. And one thing that I wish I knew in advance is just how damn cold it can be in Georgia in March. So being from New York, I'd never been down south before. We were starting in late March, around the 20th or so, and I figured it's the south, it's late March, it's starting to get pretty nice and springy around here, surely it can't be that cold. And I knew we'd be in the mountains, so I knew it would be a little colder than I thought, but I was not expecting how it was. It was frigid, and of course every year is going to be different. We met some people out there who had been hiking the month before in February in the same area and said it was much warmer, so you could get warmer temperatures, but I would just say be prepared for some very cold nights in the beginning in Georgia. And one other thing, I also didn't realize how hard Georgia is. Don't feel bad if you start out and you're like, oh my god, this is so hard, I don't know if I can do this, because Georgia, I would still argue, and I've been down there again recently hiking, and my memories seem to serve correct that those mountains are pretty serious. They are hard, they are straight, steep, up and down, all day, every day, and they're quite tall, so I feel like after the Whites in southern Maine, Georgia was probably the hardest section of trail. And of course you don't have your trail legs yet either, and you're getting used to carrying all that weight on your back. So be prepared for some cold nights if you're going northbound starting in Georgia, and don't feel bad if you're really struggling in the beginning, because it will get better. Trust me. Okay, that's it. Bye.
Hey everyone, my name is Baby. I thru-hiked the AT in 2018. I started off doing a flip-flop. So I started in Waynesboro, Virginia, and hiked north to Maine, and then I came back down and hiked from Virginia to Tennessee, and then ended up flip-flopping again from Georgia to Tennessee. So it was very complicated. There are a lot of factors that went into that decision. It was weird. Don't worry about it. So when I started hiking, I felt a lot of pressure to hike really fast, to crush a whole lot of miles, to try to just look really tough. But let me tell you something. It is hard to look tough when there are blisters on each one of your toes, and every step you take just feels like you're walking on hot magma. So do yourself a favor and take care of your dang feet. Step one, go buy a good pair of shoes. Go to the store, try out a bunch of different brands, make sure you get the sizing right, make sure you get the width right, make sure your toes aren't all squished together, and make sure you can really just picture yourself taking about 1 billion steps in that pair of shoes. That is a good place to start. Second, if you are prone to blisters, I recommend trying out a pair of sock liners. The brand that I like to use is called Injinji. It's spelled Injinji. I think that's right. They're like little gloves for your feet. They wrap each of your toes individually, so that your toes don't end up rubbing together. And then those go under your normal socks. They're amazing. They saved my life. Step 3, and this is just generally good advice, take care of your body. Listen to what your body has to say. If you're hiking 25 miles a day, you got sore knees, you have blisters on your feet, your stomach hurts because you're not eating right, you need to figure out what is going wrong and reassess and figure out how to feel better. You are not going to be able to walk 2,000 miles if your body feels bad. Fact. Take care of your body, listen to what it needs, give it what it needs. That's all I have to say. Thanks for listening. Shout out to Glistic for asking me to be on. And if there's anyone out there who thinks that they have the rightful claim to the name Baby, give me a call because we have beef.
My name is Moss, and I hiked the AT in 2018. Here are 4 things I wish I knew before I left for the Appalachian Trail. So first, I wish I had known that in Georgia it is so cold. I was freezing my butt off out there, and I really wish that I had brought a little bit of extra layers. I feel like everyone in the beginning is like, oh, you're starting in Georgia. It's not that bad. It's, the South, there's not going to be any snow. Well, I started March 21st, and there was most definitely snow on my first day. So be prepared. It's not impossible, but just make sure that you have a little extra layers, maybe a hat and gloves and things like that. Speaking of Georgia, when I first started, I wish I had known that there was going to be so many mice around. I feel like I really wanted to stay in the shelters because that was where everyone was, and I thought that would keep me warmer. Honestly, I think a tent will actually keep you warmer, especially in the Georgia cold if you're heading northbound. But there was so many mice in the shelters, and I wish I had just saved myself a little bit of sleepless nights by just deciding to sleep in my tent, because I feel like that was so much warmer and I wasn't gonna be bothered by mice. The third thing I wish I had known before I hiked the Appalachian Trail is to save a little extra money for when you come home, because I think everyone, especially their first thru hike, saves all this money for their thru hike, but then they don't think about coming back. And I'm sure this has happened to many other people, but I feel like I came back and then I had a lot of expenses to pay for and ran out of money. So I think it's very important before you leave for the trail to financially plan how much you think you're going to need beforehand during the hike, and then set aside a nest egg of something that's maybe a month or 2 of your expenses if possible. The fourth thing I wish I had known before I hiked the AT is that I wish I had been a little bit more confident in myself to go solo or move around with groups and things like that. I feel like in the beginning, especially in your first thru hike, you want to make sure you're finding that group of people that you're going to hang out with the entire time. And for me, it ended up being that there was a lot of different groups that I hung out with and hiked with. And so yeah, don't be afraid to kind of hike your own hike, even though the group is maybe going one way. If you're really feeling like you want to do something else, like there's nothing wrong with that. But also you can go with the group, and it's pretty much just like do whatever feels right for you. I hiked solo for a little bit, and that was actually like a really good experience for me, as well as all my times when I was hiking with a group. And for a little bonus, just make sure you're taking those side trips. Don't feel like you have to rush the trail. The trail is so fun, and who knows if you're ever going to be out there again. And you know, I know it's 2,200 miles and you're trying to make it there at a certain amount of time, but there's going to be a time when you're not on the trail and you're going to be like, damn, I really wish I was still back on the trail. So don't forget to take those side trips. Slow down a little bit towards the end of the trail. Have fun, drink the beers, go into town, and go swim in those lakes and streams.
Hi, my name is Rachel, my trail name is Blade, and I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2018. I wanted to talk to you today about a few things I wish I knew before I started. Number one is how hard it would be, mentally more than physically. I didn't realize how many negative things my brain would constantly say to me, and I was prepared physically for the hike more than mentally. Before the hike, I would go to my local gym with my loaded pack on and hike up and down, or up the Stairmaster for hours at a time, and there were stairs by my house that I would hike up and down with my loaded pack on. I'm from Illinois, so definitely flatlander. I have never seen a mountain before heading on the trail, so prepping physically was my main concern. Now I live in Erie, Pennsylvania. This is Lake Erie. The waves, if they're a little loud, I apologize. It's a little windy today. But yeah, so I'm from Illinois. I trained like that for the trail, but I didn't really have a lot of mental preparation for how tough it would actually get. Mother Nature throws a lot of stuff at you out there. There's rain, sleet, snow. We walked through a blizzard in the Smokies. We went through a heat wave too, and there's a lot pulling you home. You have friends, family, maybe pets and things like that, and your brain may constantly tell you, just quit and go home. There's also just the creature comforts that you're missing out there. And you may have relationships that you're leaving back at home. I had a marriage that began falling apart when I left, and that was really mentally tough to get through. My brain constantly told me to quit, and every time that I hit a hard patch, I just had to keep pushing through, and it's just, it can be very draining, more mentally, I think, than physically. Physically, eventually your body gets strong. You get your hiker legs. You might be tired all the time, but you do get stronger physically and mentally too. But it just, for me, my brain was telling me, giving me self-doubt up until the very end. Even the climb up Katahdin, I was still hearing inside my head, you can't do it, you can't do it, you should quit. Since the trail, I've become a lot more mentally strong, but before, during, and a little bit after, definitely a mental struggle, and definitely hard. So just take that into consideration. A couple of suggestions I have is definitely write down your reasons for going. If you don't want to carry the actual paper with you, maybe keep a note in your phone. I look back at that constantly when I was having hard days to remember why I started on that trek in the first place, and it did help. And then maybe doing some mindfulness before you go, some yoga, some affirmations. Maybe keep a list of affirmations that are your favorites that you can look back on or recite to yourself when you're climbing up a really tough climb. And maybe having that with you will help. I wish I had thought of that before, because I think saying something over and over to yourself like I am strong, or I am worthy, or I can do this, over and over would be very helpful when your brain is telling you awful things. So that's number one. Number two is something that I still wish I knew, is who is the ambiguous they? The people who tell you Pennsylvania's rocks suck, the whites are horrible, you're never going to be prepared for the whites, that Virginia's flat, all those kind of rumors and lore that you hear along the way. I never met these people, but even before I started, when I was doing my research, I would hear these things all the time from they, them, the group, and I personally loved Pennsylvania, and I personally loved the whites, and for the longest time leading up to them, I was so terrified of both of them because of these things that you hear that people tell you that, oh, they say all these things. Oh, they say you shouldn't wear those shoes. Oh, they say you shouldn't have that tent. And I think the most important thing you will learn is just don't listen to everything that everybody says. You'll make up your own opinions. You'll have your own experience, and don't take that worry on that you're making the wrong decision or that you're not strong enough to do something because they said that it was tough. So I wish I knew who these they were, but I still don't. So make your own decisions. And that's number two. Number three is how much weight doesn't matter and how much at the same time it will become your life. Before starting, I did so much research on getting the best, most lightest tent, backpack, all these things. And when I weighed in at Amicalola, my pack weighed 30 pounds, which gave me an instant disappointment because, you know, everybody talks about these base weights and all these things. And what's crazy is I still hiked with that backpack. I still made it all the way to Katahdin. It didn't break me. Now, should you make good gear decisions? Sure. But I had stuff from Walmart. I had my rain jacket that was from Walmart. It is snowing right now, so just in case you see it. But I had shirts and shorts and stuff from Walmart. I made a lot of gear decisions and bought a lot of gear from Walmart when I could to save money. But yeah, you should try to get the lightest stuff for sure. Your pack weight does matter, but you'll hear so many people out there talking. All they'll talk about is weight, and it's irrelevant, but it's something that I think people will have in common, so they talk about it. And it is one thing though, when I was doing my research, that weight did become my life. It was how much does this cost versus how much does it weigh, and how much does it cost per ounce, and is it worth it? So and even after the trail now, when I go on backpacking adventures, I just went to California or to Colorado with a few friends, and we all did shakedowns and weighed everything and made sure that our packs were as light as possible and all these things. And even when I'm still buying new gear, it's like, oh, well, you know, I don't know if I need a new sleeping pad because mine works perfectly fine, but I could shave off, you know, X amount of ounces if I buy this one now, even though it's $120 and I don't really need it. So it was very surprising to me how much, weight doesn't really matter, but it became my life at the same time. So that's number three. I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight, and happy trails, hike your own hike, all that good stuff. See you on the trail.
All right, guys, so there are the tips from the people who've come before you. If anyone's watching that has actually thru-hiked the AT in the past, I would love to hear what you wish you would have known. So drop that in the comments. And don't forget to like this video if you got value out of it.